Someone is smiling at you. It started normally. A second ago, it was fine. But something has shifted. And you can feel it, somewhere below language, somewhere older than thought, and the smile is still there. Still technically a smile, teeth and eyes, and the right arrangement of muscle, and yet, you know? You cannot say how you know, but you know. Hold a smile for 1 second too long, and you've crossed a border that no culture on earth has drawn on any map, and yet every culture on earth has agreed upon, without a meeting, without a treaty, without anyone deciding. Somewhere in the long dark before we were what we are, something happened. Something that made us look at a mouth full of teeth and feel, first, fear, and then, slowly, carefully, love. And we never quite finished the conversion. The fear is still there. Underneath the warmth, the original signal persists, encoded in us at a depth that culture cannot reach. This is the story of what a smile actually is. And it is stranger than you think. We are taught, from the moment we can absorb a lesson, that smiling means happiness. Smiling means safety. Safety. Smiling means, I am not a threat to you. And the research does confirm this, up to a point. Cross-cultural studies have documented the smile in societies that had no prior contact with Western norms. Remote villages, Antikau, Antikitinen, Anisam Ainasir, Adiban Helmsvitin, isolated communities, Antent Kon, Alnankan, and Ketio Isaiah. Isolated communities. People who had never seen a photograph. They all smiled. Then, they all recognized a smile. There is something to this universality. It is real. It is not nothing. But here is what gets quietly omitted from the warmth and happiness story. In almost every other species on the planet, and especially among our closest relatives, the primate's baring teeth means exactly one thing. It means, I could hurt you. The chimpanzee that pulls its lips back wide is not expressing joy. It is expressing potential. It is saying, look at what I have. Look at what I could do with this. The human smile, somewhere in the deep history of our lineage, is descended from that display. From the primate grimace. From the fear grin. A submissive baring of teeth that said, essentially, I am afraid of you. Please do not destroy me. We took that signal, that ancient threat and submission gesture, and we extended it toward strangers as warmth, as invitation. We domesticated the grimace. We turned the fear grin into a hello. But domestication is not erasure. And the grimace remembers what it was. There is a researcher at the University of Wisconsin named Jared Martin who ran a study on what happens inside a person's body when someone smiles at them in a specific way. Not a warm smile. A dominant smile. A smile that said, I am above you, and I know it, and I am smiling because I can afford to. The results were measurable. Cortisol spiked. The target stress hormones elevated in direct response to a smile. A smile caused a stress response, not a frown, not a scowl, a smile. What is happening there, in that spike, is not a misunderstanding. It is recognition. The ancient detector, the one we share with every social primate that ever had to read a face quickly and survive on the answer, that detector is still running. It is always running. Monokite. And it is very good at distinguishing between the smile that means warmth and the smile that means power. The smile that means I am happy to see you, and the smile that means I have already decided how this ends. The difference between those two smiles, in pure muscular terms, is vanishingly small. It is a fraction of a second in duration. It is the particular involvement of the orbicularis oculi, the muscle around the eye, which contracts in genuine emotion and tends not to in performed emotion. Paul Ekman. The psychologist who spent decades cataloging facial expressions, called the genuine smile the Duchenne smile, after the French neurologist who first identified it by running electrical current through the faces of his patients, which is a sentence that deserves a moment of quiet contemplation. The point is, there is a real smile and a performed smile, and the gap between them is almost nothing, and the part of your brain that reads faces processes that gap in under 200 milliseconds. And it has been doing this, without your permission or awareness, for a very long time. Consider what it means that we built our primary signal of safety out of the raw material of threat. Every time you smile at a stranger, you are performing a gesture whose evolutionary ancestor was a dominance display. You are, in some technical sense, showing them your weapons and hoping they read it correctly. And they almost always do. Because the same evolutionary pressure that shaped the display also shaped the ability to read it. Sender and receiver co-evolved across millions of years, calibrated against each other, tuned to a frequency that operates entirely below consciousness. But here's where it becomes genuinely strange. The calibration is not perfect. It was never meant to be perfect. It was meant to be fast. And fast systems make specific kinds of errors. They are built to overdetect rather than underdetect. Because in an environment where a misread smile could mean predator or rival or enemy, the cost of false positives is low, and the cost of false negatives is extinction. So, the detector is biased. It is biased toward threat. It watches the smile the way you might watch a fire. Grateful for the warmth, aware of what it is, never quite forgetting. This is why the overly long smile lands wrong. The smile that stays a beat too long has shifted into a different category of signal, one that no longer carries the temporal signature of spontaneous emotion. Genuine expressions have a natural onset and offset. They arise and they dissolve. A smile held past its natural endpoint is no longer being generated by the moment. It is being maintained. And the detector, ancient and paranoid and correct, more often than not, notices the maintenance. It notices that someone is managing their face at you. And it asks, reasonably, why? The cultures that distrust frequent smiling from strangers, parts of Northern Europe, Russia, much of East Asia, are not being cold. They are, in a certain light, being honest. They are acknowledging what the smile actually is. The cultures that smile constantly and expansively have simply made a different social contract with the ambiguity. Neither is wrong. Both are navigating the same ancient signal with different local rules. Under all the rules, the original encoding sits. Patient. Tun anandanan. Lentesahan. Kitamnede. Bestaubran. Unkanst. Antilyanan. Assumadisia. on how and step back far enough, and this becomes something larger than a fact about faces. We did not arrive here clean. And we arrived here carrying everything that came before us. Every adaptation, every behavioral residue, every signal that worked well enough to survive the culling of the generations. We are not new things walking around with ancient software installed as an afterthought. We are continuous with that deep past. The primate grimacing in a tree 40 million years ago is not a distant relative doing something we have moved beyond. It is an earlier draft of the same document. The smile is a time machine. When you smile at someone across a room and they feel the warmth of it, something ancient is communicating with something ancient across a gap that is also, in some sense, no gap at all. The same signal. The same receiver. 40 million years of the same negotiation. And when the smile goes wrong, when it holds a half second too long, when the eyes do not quite close right, when the warmth does not reach wherever warmth is supposed to reach, the receiver knows. Not with words, not with thought. It knows the way a body knows it is falling before the mind has processed the information. Poor, pre-linguistic, older than language knowing. You are, in those moments, being read by something that predates you. Something that lives in the architecture of what you are, looking out through your eyes, checking the faces of strangers with the same careful attention it has always paid. Deciding, in under 200 milliseconds, whether the creature in front of you is safe. It has been doing this since before there were words for safety. It will be doing this long after we have found new words for everything else. Someone is smiling at you. It started normally. And now you know what that smile is, at its deepest structural level. A threat display, worn smooth by millions of years of social use, polished into warmth, but not entirely, never entirely, stripped of what it came from. You are looking at the domesticated grimace. You are looking at the fear grin that learned to mean hello. The warmth is real. Do not mistake any of this for cynicism. The warmth is genuinely there, and it matters, and it has built everything worth building between people. But underneath it, always, is the older signal, the bared teeth, the ancient announcement of capability. Maybe that is not unsettling. Maybe it is the opposite. Maybe there is something extraordinary in the fact that we took our most primal threat display and turned it, imperfectly and wonderfully, into the primary signal we used to say, "I see you, and I mean you no harm." We are strange animals. We took the face we make when we are afraid, and we gave it to the people we love. The smile stayed a little too long, but you understood it perfectly. You always do.